Anyway, we're going to be talking about trying to prospect. No, actually prospecting. Prospecting. What is prospecting about? Prospecting is actually, in many ways, a better word to use. I'm going to pin myself here just a second. It's a better word to use for attracting clients than marketing. Marketing is all the activities a business would do to get attention, get response, and ultimately get customers. But prospecting is really a fit for an independent professional or a salesperson that is reaching out to make connections and discover potential clients, right? And central to my system for marketing is prospecting. It's a very big part of it. And it has these steps to it. One is, what is your message? How are you different? What makes you valuable? And then that's expanded into some written marketing materials in which you explain, here's what I do, how I do it, how I help you, what my value is, how my services work, etc. So that gives you a foundation for your prospecting. And then prospecting then starts with, who can I connect with? Whether warm or cold, who do I know in my network? What organizations do I belong to? What people do I know in business? Who am I connected to on LinkedIn? Who am I connected to in social media, et cetera, et cetera? Who's in my immediate network to begin with, at least? And then it's finding ways to connect with them and explore if what you have is a possible fit for them. And then having conversations about that. And that process, if you do it well, gets you clients. And the first part of getting a message together and getting your materials together, that can be an ongoing thing that you refine over the years. But once you have that basic stuff, you can use it over and over. Once you've nailed down the selling process, and when you have actually a good prospective client that you're having a conversation with, there's a particular approach, questions, interaction that will work to convert someone that's a prospective client into a paying client. And so once you've mastered the selling process, it's not hard at all. Selling process is not hard. What's hard is prospecting. If there's anything that's hard, it's prospecting. So prospecting obviously is taken from the idea of a guy that's prospecting for gold, right? He's out in the mountains, he's chipping away at the rocks, he's looking for gold. Now, what everybody wants is to find a big vein of gold, right? That vein of gold that has gazillions of dollars, and we go out and spend an hour and a half or so, and then we find the vein of gold, and then we can do what we like to do, which is mine for the gold and get the income. But nobody prospects for an hour and a half unless they're really, 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 really lucky and hits a vein of gold right away with somebody. So it takes time. Prospecting takes time. It takes persistence. It takes work. It takes creativity. It takes resilience because a lot of prospecting, there are dead ends. You're chipping away at the rocks and nothing is happening, and you go another place and another place and another place. So I just want to have a conversation about this. I'll share some of my ideas, of course, but I want to hear, anything that you would like to share perhaps with your experience of prospecting. Some people don't prospect at all. Some people have had the good luck of, I worked with a client recently and he said, I started out and I knew somebody and I got into a company and it was what they needed. And I ended up doing 77 programs with that company over 20 years. I didn't have to prospect. It basically word of mouth came in, and that's wonderful if that can happen. But for most of us, that doesn't happen. If you do a great job, yes, you will get word of mouth business. But whether you're in business, but what happened with him is he's older. He's in his late 70s now, and he says either my people have retired or died. So, things aren't happening anymore. People have forgotten about me. And I said, well, it's time to um, put on your prospecting hat again and start reaching out and connecting and communicating and exploring again, which is something he hadn't done for a very, very long time. So those are, from the very beginning to who knows where you are in the process. But when things slow down, what one needs to do is start prospecting. So what are some of your thoughts about prospecting? What you've done, what you haven't done, questions, confusions about it, anything you would like to share about prospecting?
Robert, I'll offer something to start with, I guess.
Yeah, please.
I think the first thought is, and I tell this to a lot of my clients, we shouldn't be prospecting the world. We really need to figure out how to narrow that audience down to a manageable size. A manageable could be different depending on the company and the budget, but you talked about doing some things like reaching out to people well, that's fine too, but you're assuming that that's also somebody that has a reasonable chance to need or want your product too. So the idea really is to try to figure out who that audience is. Ideally, I think if you can find yourself kind of an industry niche of sorts or some other niche to narrow it down, that would help. But beyond that, you also need to qualify them in terms of their size, in terms of meaning their budget or their employee size or sales volume, however you want to define it. In terms
Yes.
of their location. Location's not as important anymore with Zoom, things like Zoom. Of course, we don't have to worry about it as much as we used to.
Yeah.
The contact person in a company is pretty critical. And then, of course, you also need to find some way to determine their interest. People often need may need what you have to offer, but they may not be interested. And so and I've done a lot of lead generation programs in the past, and we've tried to, through list selection, I used to do a lot of direct mail, still do, but direct mail was the medium of choice back then. We did a lot of list research to figure out who the right people were. And then we use lead magnets and offers of information in our mailers to identify who at least was interested enough to listen to us. And so it's basic strategy. We apply that across the board, but you apply it differently, of course, depending on the situation. But
Yeah, every business is different.
yeah.
But I think one of the important things that you pointed out, Bob, is we really have to know who our ideal clients are. I love to use analogies. So a prospector, obviously, he's not going to prospect for gold in the desert. He knows a certain kinds of rock formations, but a better or my favorite analogy is fishing. First of all, you got to figure what fish do you want to catch, and then what is the bait that they will respond to. And that's where the idea of a lead magnet works. Who here has used some kind of a lead magnet? And a lead magnet can be like a report, or the 10 things that you have to do whatever, a report, or sometimes it can be a video. Who has used a lead magnet? So a lot of you've used a lead magnet, haven't you, Richard?
A lead magnet. Yes, we've used lots of lead magnets. We've given a lot of things away. My challenge is what I'm selling is a deep look at the drivers of your financial behaviors. And nobody wakes up in the morning and says, geez, my problem is really how my identity and my worthiness and my beliefs about the world, who can I call? I think I'll call Rich Friesen.
Right, right. But
So,
the,
you know, what I'm selling, you know, once I get somebody in a discovery call, well,
Yeah.
then we can drop down to those levels and they go, oh my God, I didn't realize that. But nobody is buying what I'm selling because they had nobody, very few people are willing to look at the actual deepest levels that are driving behaviors that don't serve them.
so the question is, you know, a lead magnet is a tool for attention getting, yes? It's a tool for attention getting. You know, the email itself has to get attention. It has to have some kind of message that's interesting. And the copy has to say something that makes people intrigued or somewhat interested to respond in some way. But the lead magnet is, so by the way, it's really hard to hear you. You might want to try to move your microphone really close to your mouth. I don't know
Okay.
why the volume isn't good. Maybe you can plug your thing in and out or something. I don't know. Sometimes it happens. But let's not drill too deep with a specific thing right now. Let's hear a few other ideas just about prospecting and what you've tried or questions you have or what you're struggling with. Dan.
I used to be a career coach, and I would
Yeah.
attend a lot of meetings in the Bay Area where people were generally in search, or managers and professionals that would meet. And the question was always, among this group, there are probably 10% of the people that would be appropriate as clients. And the
Right.
question is how I find them. And the way you do it, or the way I did it, is I help them announce themselves. And I do it with what I call a networking dialogue. So you step up to somebody, it's best to step up to a group of 3 or more. And you just listen for a few minutes, and they say, that's interesting what you said. And now you drop one little topic. Just came back from Monterey, or there was a fantastic new book that I just saw. And then you turn it around with a question. What brings you here? Now you've said enough that the right person will respond. Oh, that book, I know something similar. Or Monterey, I love that. So you begin a dialogue, and very, very quickly, you decide whether you want to continue the conversation or not. And that's a way to help people announce themselves. If you say something that's a little bit intriguing, and if you listen to them carefully, they will typically respond in kind. Hope that helps.
Yeah, so you're talking about a specific prospecting technique in a networking venue.
Yes.
It's not, yeah, you know, it's really smart, Dan, because a lot of people show up for networking events. I don't know who's been to a networking event in the last 2 years. I will never go to one again, probably, but but yeah, I used to do a lot of that. And people go to networking events and they clutch their drink and they sit in a corner and they sort of wait for something to happen. So you're doing something that I really advocate, which is be proactive.
But not with an elevator pitch.
But
That's
not with your elevator pitch, which I think is great. It's like you just get a conversation going. And then the brilliant part about that, I really love that, is what brings you guys to this meeting? What brings you to this meeting? And then someone would say, well, I'm in the job search right now and I'm trying to figure out looking for a job. And if that's the kind of client you're looking for, then you can zero in, have a conversation, get a card, follow up with that guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's brilliant. That's really, really good.
And there's
the
one
thing
other...
about it is not very complicated. It takes a little courage, but it's not really complicated.
Yeah. And the other key strategy of this is when you're in a large group, there are all sizes of groups and people talking to each other. If just 2 people are talking to each other, don't intervene. That may be a private conversation. If there are 3 or more, it's easy. 5 or more, you don't have enough time. So I usually approach a group of 3 and I'll stand by the one who's just listening. and I'll just nod to somebody, and you're now a part of the group. And then you respond to what one of the other two has said, and now you've announced yourself. And very quickly, somebody will either light up or not. And
Yep.
if they don't, enjoy the meeting. It's been good talking to you, and you go find another group.
Yeah.
So in a typical networking meeting in half an hour, you can have engaged with 30 people, connected with 10, and really connected with another 5 that you pull out of that group and say, let's just talk on the side for a moment. So it's a very efficient way, and it's very non-threatening to you and to them, and it's not pushy.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, one of the things that people always ask me is when I go to a networking event, I don't know what to say. And so sometimes we practice your message, but people are hoping that they'll say their message and people will go, oh my God, that's so wonderful. Give me your card. I need you. I mean, I wish that happened, but it doesn't. I wish I'd understood this technique many years ago. I would probably be more successful than I am now. That's a really, really powerful approach.
I will send you a tutorial if you're interested.
Yeah, I do. I mean, steal that idea. For those of you who use networking events, I haven't heard of a better approach. Really fantastic, Jim.
I like that question very much that he opens with, which what brings you to this? Because it's always hard to start with something. And when you ask a question like that, what brings you to this meeting? It's perfect way to get some answers. But I think the other part that you were saying, or not saying, but implying was that, when you go to a meeting like this, your business should be less about talking and more about listening to try to find out who are your prospects. I always say, don't worry about bringing business cards, worry about collecting them when you get there. Because you're getting
Absolutely.
leads when you get cards, So anyways, I do like that idea myself.
I often say if people ask me what I do, I give them a very quick and simple answer using my marketing message. And then I ask them a question. And I don't want to get into explaining what I do at a networking event. Because it goes down a pathway that doesn't work that well for some reason. It just doesn't work that well. And you feel like, and then all of a sudden you feel like you're trying to convince them, and that doesn't go well. But if you're listening and asking some good questions, you can really make a great connection. Okay, great. Okay, we've already gotten some great value from today. So, who would like to share an idea you have, a question about prospecting? Pat.
Well, recently, I restarted my business after a hiatus due to a number of family things. And I was really hesitant to phone people who I already knew, but I hadn't spoken to in a long time. So what I decided to do, and what's made it really easy, is I'm doing market research for a program that I'm launching in November, a pilot program, I mean. And so the people I'm calling, I have a list of questions, which over time I'm gradually fine-tuning them. And not my fear, but I guess I had a bit of a mental block about calling people when I hadn't spoken to them a long time, thinking, oh, they're going to think I'm calling them just to sell them something. So this got rid of that block. And I have been pleasantly surprised at every single person I've called has been willing to have a brief interview. And I'm going to continue that. And then for my primary target market, I'm going to do the same thing. And I found this was a great way of breaking the ice. So I have no hesitancy about calling them back down the road for further things and staying in touch. Initially, I wanted to avoid phoning because it is a bit arduous. However, I find by phoning and speaking directly to the person, the communication is much improved.
Yeah, do you send an email to get the meeting, or do you just try to phone directly?
I phone directly. Now,
Okay.
mind you, these are all people who are local
Yeah.
in my city. So it would be quite different if I was calling people who were, say, a member of a LinkedIn group or something.
Right. So have you had a good hit rate in reaching people? If you don't reach them, you
Yeah.
just try another time?
Yeah, very good, actually.
Yeah.
Not only in reaching, well, I don't reach them maybe that split second, but they all call me back the same day so far. And all of them have been willing to have the interview, whether it was at that moment or we would book a time. Now,
So
these are
Pat,
not 3-hour interviews. These are short, you know, not too long.
Pat, let's just role play a bit because we'd like to hear exactly what you say. So say I'm a colleague or someone that might be interested, but you want to go through this process. So the phone rings and I say, "Hi, Robert here." What do you say?
I say, "Hi, Robert. We have, you know, it's a long time no speak to sort of thing.
Yeah, good to hear from you. What's up?
Yeah, well, I'm just calling this time to, I have a pilot program that's starting in November, but right now, the reason I'm calling is I'm interviewing people to do some market research and to find out what, you know, what people want and need. And then I'm just looking for some of the questions here. Hang on a moment. I thought I would have them memorized by now, but I don't. So
Yeah, it's always good to have a list of your questions in front of you.
yeah, I keep
For
them
sure.
totally right in front of me because number one, I want to avoid rambling. And as an ADHDer, I can really get into things too deeply, and I don't want to, you know, take it too deep in this first initial call.
So how many
basically
questions
what
do
I
you
say-
ask?
the first thing I say is, can I ask you for your generosity for about 10-15 minutes of your time?
Okay.
And then I say, I'm doing research for a new project, actually a pilot course project, and about this particular target market, and to learn more about how they're growing their businesses. And then I have 6 or 7 questions. And then at the end, if appropriate, I ask if they know anyone else who'd be willing. And they give me, some people don't know anyone, other people give me 2-3 names.
Okay, good. So question is, in asking these questions, do you find that often generates interest in the program?
Yeah, actually it does. And some, it doesn't show, but what I've offered to send them a report on the research, and they're really interested in getting that. And actually a question I'm thinking about, what would be a gift I could give them to thank them? If you have any ideas of like an online gift, like I thought of, like, I don't know, some kind of cheat sheet or something.
Yeah, you could give them a report. You could do a short video with some tips. There's a lot, you know, it's like the lead magnet type of thing.
But I will be following up with them in October.
Yeah.
And sharing, first of all, the outcome I'll be sending that report for their research, but also talking to them about the program.
Right.
And asking them for their interest.
Yeah. So I've had a lot of
Because
clients.
it's a pilot, it's not as expensive.
Yeah.
The full tilt book.
It's a great way to get started. And the other thing I like about this, Pat, is, you know, you have an idea for the program, and the program is going to cover X, Y, Z, et cetera. But when you start to interview people and ask them these questions, you realize, oh, I was going to focus more here. This is more where the interest is. And then when you're asking people, you know, if you've got this issue, or what do you feel you need help with, whatever the questions are, people are telling you what they want. No, I don't want big, I want small. I don't want red, I want green. And then you get to customize the program based on what people are telling you.
Well,
which is really smart.
Yeah, so partly it's exactly what you're saying, right on. right on. And
Yeah.
the other part is being able to, in future messaging, use their exact words, more or less, so that I'm speaking their language, not what I think their language is. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, I used to talk
Sometimes
about that.
sometimes I think things should be a certain way, and
Yes,
hello, I'm off the mark. So, but by hearing exactly what they're saying,
yeah,
and does that make sense then?
it makes sense. Who else has used any kind of a questionnaire or I've done questionnaires, but I've never done a whole series of interviews like this. It's time consuming, obviously, but if you can keep the calls to about 10 minutes or so, it can be quite efficient and you could talk to quite a lot of people. You have to really be at it to do a lot. Who has done something like this, some kind of an interview for as a prospecting tool? Who likes that idea? Put your hand up. George is going, I'm not sure if I like that. I don't know if I want to talk to people. I love it. I love that idea.
I don't want to.
You don't want to? No,
but
what
I've
we
done-
want, you see, what we want, we have to remember what we want. We want people to call us out of the blue with $500,000 and ready to spend it today. That's what we want. But that is delusional. So,
Well, the introverted side of me and the part of me with my British mother who says, oh, I don't want to bother people. We just don't do that, dear, and all that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Is I've just kind of gone, blow that off, and just doing it, even though it's boring, it's repetitive, and I hate boring and repetitive, and yet what I'm uncovering is actually fantastic, and I really see that anyone who doesn't do it, I think it's a fantastic way of building relationships, renewing relationships, and also seeing which ones to pursue and which ones not to pursue. Am I
Yes.
going to do this, much of this all the time forever? No, I'm doing this for a certain period of time. And I'm really seeing that over time, doing this type of interview, even if I do 5 little ones a week or something for 10 minutes,
yeah,
it'll serve me well in the long run.
yeah. I think it's a great idea. I think you can do a lot of variations on that and fine tune it in a lot of ways, but it's a great way to get people to respond. And as opposed to, I have a new program, can I tell you all about it? That doesn't work very well. Then your resistance goes up. I'm working on developing a program. I'd like to get your input and ideas of the kind of thing you'd appreciate in the program. And people love to be interviewed. Do you know that? People love to be interviewed. Not 100% of people, but most people. It's like, thank you for asking for my opinion. I feel acknowledged. I feel noticed. I feel, that you appreciate me. So it makes it a lot easier because it's something people like.
Another important thing to remember too, for those of us who help people for a living, is to not jump in. It's to keep the lip zipped and just listen and not try to fix anything or anything like that.
You know what they call that? Salesperson's disease. Learned that along. Talking too much. Okay, so that's fantastic, Pat. That's really powerful, and it's great to hear that you're in the middle of doing that now. You're using it. As we do this program, I'm interested in people coming back and sharing success stories of some things they did, or someone said, I stole Pat's idea and I did it, and this is what I got from it. Steal these ideas. We've got some really good ones so far. And it's given me an idea, which I'll share with you later. Okay, who else would like to share
Me,
something about prospecting? Marlo?
yeah, I have a,
Oh, and Marlo, before you start, if you want to share, If you go to the bottom of the Zoom thing, you can click on reactions and then raise hand, and then your hand will go up and it'll be easier to call on the next person. We can just keep it going. Okay, but go ahead, Marlo.
So sorry.
No problem.
I'm kind of in distress because the CMS, I market Medicare insurance, Medicare plans, and CMS has come up with the final ruling about marketing tactics for brokers and agents. And we're being categorized as the same as, the third party calls that people get for Medicare,
Yeah.
where they're just covering the whole blanket of everything and have a call room for doing it. So it's frustrating because it makes me have to do a disclaimer before I even talk with whoever I've got on the phone.
It's great.
Pardon?
We've got someone talking. I'm going to mute everybody and
He's very
then,
knowledgeable and
okay.
what?
Robert, will there be a replay?
Yeah, I'll talk to you about that later. So Marlo, unmute yourself and everyone else is muted. People get into side conversations and forget that their mic is on. Okay, so Marlo, so there's a new law that says if you make a call to someone about this, you have to give a disclaimer ahead of time,
Yes.
right?
First thing out of my mouth.
Yeah. So, do you want a tip or an idea about how you can make that work for you?
Yes.
Okay. I always have an opinion, but I'd love to hear someone else's first. What would you do in that case where you have to do a disclaimer? If you do this disclaimer and you do it wrong, they could just hang the phone up on you, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And what the disclaimer is telling them that the call is going to be recorded.
Yeah.
And so they may say, I don't want to be recorded. And then I have to say, fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we can meet in person, So this whole Zoom world becomes almost obsolete for my profession.
Well, I hope not. So anyone have an idea of how you would manage that in the phone call so it was just a hiccup, not a complete derailment? No ideas?
Well, Robert, I guess I'm a little curious if
Go ahead.
this is for cold calling, correct? I mean, you're calling these people and they're not expecting the phone call. But
No.
if they're
No,
expecting you to
it's
call, you
not-
don't have to do.
It's for any call I make for somebody who's breathing.
Yeah,
That
related
can
to
be
this,
current client.
related to this insurance.
Yeah.
But if you have somebody you've been already talking to and have you're talking about a project already, and every time you call them, you have to go through that little.
I have to go through
Disclaimer.
that. Yes.
What are the actual words you'd use, Marlo?
There's a script of what I have to say, and it's saying something about CMS rules require that I record this call. And sorry, I can't see it here now, but I got my avoidances.
How long is it? How long is the word?
It's probably 15 seconds.
15 seconds. Okay, that's not so problematic. So here is my first suggestion. Never read it. Look, if you're Hamlet,
Mhm.
you don't bring the script with you and read it. You have memorized it and internalized it.
Yeah.
And so if I say right now, hey guys, I just want to let you know that I'm recording this and this might be broadcast to other people on my list. And if that's a problem for any of you, just let me know, or you can blank out your screen or don't say anything. Is that a problem for anyone? So I made it conversational. Now, I didn't practice that. If I was doing, I would practice those so that I was better than Hamlet. I would practice it so people would go, oh, how wonderful that it's being recorded. That gives me security. If your mindset says this is in the way, it will be in the way. If it's just something you have to handle and you just say in a very just how, in a way that doesn't sound threatening, it won't be a problem for you. It's not, you might even be able to use it as an advantage because they'll feel confident. I just need to let you know before the call that according to CMS guidelines, I have to record this call. And if that's not a problem, I'd like to ask you a couple questions, or, get it so that you really have it down instead of, oh, this is a terrible thing I have to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I come at it with a different attitude. That makes sense. Yes.
Attitude is a big attitude and mindset. I talked about the prospecting mindset. The mindset is, I have something valuable. If you don't have something valuable, you shouldn't be selling it. I have something valuable that will benefit people. And whatever the context of the conversation, I think this will be a valuable conversation. Now, I get people calling me about Medicare supplements all the time. I'm on the list. I'm over 70. And you know what? How bad they are? On a scale of 1 to 10, they are minus 50. That's how bad they are. They're reading a script. Hello, I'm Dr. It's like there's not a human being on the other end.
Right.
So you want to practice your opening lines so it just sounds really natural and pleasing, and I'm glad to get this call. Hey, Mr. Middleton, I don't know, I know that you're getting Medicare, and I'm curious to know if you're happy if you're getting a Medicare supplement right now. Okay, and then you go and maybe is it, you can't even say that before you say recording? You can't even say anything before it?
So the requirement for recording is not for Medicare supplements. It's for Medicare Advantage and prescription drug plans.
Okay, fine.
And the other requirement is I have to record the whole conversation. So if I'm asking them about their prescriptions and everything else, that's going to be recorded. And I have to keep a file of that for 10 years.
10 years?
10 years.
And you just recorded in Zoom?
No, well, it would be if I recorded in Zoom or just if I do it over the telephone.
Yeah. So, over the telephone is trickier. Zoom creates a file, you name it, you put it in a file, it's easy, it's just there. Is there any chance anyone's ever going to look at those? Do they say, what's the call you made in such and such a date?
My concern is actually that it's putting me in a liability situation, that what happens if someone gets a hold of it. So right now there's a service that I would hire, and they're offering a free till February to use the service. And then after that, I get to pay $49 a month, and everything is archived through that.
Yeah.
But the whole point that really upsets me is that I'm an independent person. I have no say. I can't go up against big government by myself. I'm even part of an association, and they can't make any headway with these Congress people. And the part that really is upsetting is that these people who are governing and making the rules, look at
let's just put it out there. They're idiots, right?
Thank you.
Yes, they're
They were
idiots.
crooks, actually.
But guess what? You have to deal with what is.
Yeah.
No use complaining about it. How do you
Correct.
turn lemons into lemonade? It's like, there it is. It sucks. Let's do the best we can and move on. Because if you go in that place, it's hopeless. So yes, change your attitude, work on the script, have fun with it. Anyway, use the service and forget about it. There's a lot of stuff that we don't like. You know, for instance, I don't like getting up in the morning. I would prefer to stay in bed till noon every day. I like to do that. I do it on weekends. I check my email, I listen to music, I buy jazz. I would love to do that. But if I did that every day, I'd probably be broke. So that's the way it is. So Marlo, thank you for bringing this up. But, you know, even if we set our own, we have to set our own rules, and we don't like our own rules sometimes. You know, we got to reach out, we got to prospect, you know, suck it up and find a way to make it fun. If you need to do it, find a way. Just like Dan found a way. Dan probably used to go to networking events originally and wasn't very good at it. And then he figured this out and he had a breakthrough, right?
Yeah.
And Pat figured, you know, the ordinary kind of calls didn't work, so I'm going to interview people, and now she's having fun with it. So
Well, thank you, Robert. That really, you know, gives me a kick in the butt.
yeah,
Thanks.
lightens it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And you know, we all have difficult situations. No exceptions, right? So how do we deal with that? How do we have fun with that? You know, a big part of prospecting is knowing what to say, knowing what to ask. And it sometimes takes a while to figure that out. You know, one of the techniques that I use for my clients is, if you want to, if you're looking for referrals, so you want to talk to people in the network and let them know what you're doing. So you say, hey, you write an email that says, hey, John, we haven't talked for some time. I remember, you know, a couple of years ago we did X, or I noticed on LinkedIn you're doing Y, or something about them. But I would love to catch up. I'd like to know what you're doing in your business, and I'd also love to share what I'm up to these days. What's a good time we could talk? So it's mutually beneficial. And then the first part of the call is about them. And the second part of the call is, let me tell you what I'm up to. But you better have a very well thought out and rehearsed, but it doesn't sound canned, thing to say. So you say, well, I'm working with self-employed professionals who want to attract more clients. And the people that are good clients for me have one of these three problems. One is they don't have a good marketing message. And because of that, people really don't understand what they do and they can't get attention. The second one is they don't have good marketing materials. So people really don't understand all the benefits of what they do. And the third one is they can't get meetings with people and in front of people so they can convert people into clients. So I'm curious if you know anybody that has some of those problems. So when we talk about problems, that's really a good way to prospect. Do you have these issues? Or even if you're talking to someone that you think is a prospect, well, people that I can help have one or more of these problems. Can you relate to any of these? One of the big mistakes we make in prospecting is we don't script it and then practice it, just like Hamlet. You know, if you're going to be in Hamlet, you get the script, you memorize the lines, you practice umpteen hours until you can be a good actor in Hamlet. And yet, when it comes to marketing, we ramble around and we don't, you know, and our messages don't have much impact. And, well, I kind of help people with this. We've really got to think through what we're going to say. And that is the bait. You know what fishermen live for, other than catching a lot of fish? They're looking for the perfect bait. This lure, you know, this, if I could just find that, they're always looking for it and trying different things. So we got to, and our bait is words, ideas, problems, solutions. We got to think them through, write them out, practice them. And then when we're prospecting, just like Dan, he had a particular thing. He had a way of talking, and it wasn't canned, but he knew how to do it so he could get engagement 100% of the time, which is really powerful. So who has a good script or the good words to say when you're talking to a potential client? Be honest, put up your hand if you do have good words to say. Oh my God, we need some work here, right? You got to figure out what you're going to say. So Pat's worked it out. Dan has worked it out. Some people have worked it out. We just wing it. And winging it usually doesn't get the results that we want.
And I do a mini coaching session and I listen and then, okay, so this is XYZ. Do I get that right?
Can't hear you.
Wow. There's
Yeah,
something wrong.
Yeah, it's
Can
your
you hear me
Zoom
now?
connection or something. Who knows what it is? You
Okay.
change mics. We give you thumbs up. We just speak louder. Increase your voice.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes, go for it.
Okay.
Present
I
to
don't know
us.
what's wrong. I listen. I say, so this is the issue. Did I get that right? I repeat it again. I listen to their language, their body, and I say, I noticed that you use this. I noticed that your belief system is this. Is that right? So I do a mini coaching session. They get the experience. And then because I'm very expensive, they really know what they're buying, and they're buying someone who is willing to take them all the way down to the deepest levels.
Okay, so if you connect with somebody, however you connect with them, however you get the name, so your first offer is, what are the words you use? That's me like a fisherman for the bait. What are those words you use? Because the words are magic. You say these kind of words, it doesn't work. These kind of words, they really work. So what do you say to offer that initial free coaching session? How do you do that? What do you say?
Let's have a creative conversation together so we can be clear about the issues you're facing and frame them in a way that we can actually move forward and have better responses in your life.
Okay, great. So something like that. So let's, okay, we don't have to go deeper than that on that, but you have something that you've said many times, and then you fine tune it enough. And I found that if you find something that works, if the bait works for one person, it will often work for everybody. For instance, I have a particular closing question that I ask, and it works like 80 to 90% of the time. People say, yes, yeah, I want to work with you. And it's not manipulative. It's just the right question to ask at a certain point in the selling conversation, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many different parts of the whole conversation. So, the thing that I emphasize is conversations are king, but the quality of conversations and what you say is the key to success with this. So as we're going through and in various meetings, we'll talk about these and we'll learn more about these things, and I'll share them with you.
Robert, what is your question? What do you say? You gave us a really good lead up there to this really good close, and then I was just expecting you to say it. Are you willing to share?
Yeah, I am willing to share. And Graham did the right thing. Ask me a question. Pick my brain. I'm here to give you stuff for free, So it's near I have 3 parts to the selling conversation. What's your situation? What are your challenges? And what are your goals? And that might take 20 or 30 minutes to find that. So it's an open-ended question when I'm asking a lot of questions in those 3 categories. And then at a certain point, I say, okay, I have a really good sense about what you do. And then I say, based on what you've said, I've worked with people like you in a very similar situation, and I feel really confident I can help you. So it's sort of an affirmation. And then I say, what questions do you have about how I work? Now, they have always read my services information page before we have this conversation. So I know they already know a lot about how I work. So I let my services information page do the heavy lifting. So it's explained, here's how it works, and this is what I do, and this is who it's for, and here's the problems I solve, and blah, blah, blah. So it's all there on one page on my website, right? So people read that. So they already know a lot, but then I say, what questions do you have? And usually after reading that, they do have some questions. Well, how many months do you work? Or what kind of time will be involved? And questions like that. And I know if they're asking questions like that, it shows that they're definitely interested. They're looking at seeing if it's right for them. And then I answer all those questions in as much depth as necessary until they don't have any more questions. Okay, that's the key. Some people will ask a lot of questions, and some people only ask 2. But I always say, any other questions, any other concerns or about how I work and how I help my clients? Okay, so that's all the setup to the close. And then the close is, so based on all of that, where you are right now and what I offer, do you think what I do, my work or this program, would be a fit for you? That's my close. And the conversation has been about discovering a fit, because I've tried to understand them. Sometimes I'll get partway through the initial part of the conversation, this is obviously not for them, and then we'll wrap it up earlier. I talked to a guy the other day that I had a good conversation with him, but he hasn't started his business yet. He has a full-time job. He's trying to figure out what he's going to do. And I've helped people in that situation, but that's not what I want to do right now. So I said, given your situation, here's what I recommend you do next. Be on these calls, join my More Clients Club, read my newsletter, study these various things, and at some point I might be able to help you more. So I closed for him. I never ask a close that I don't think the answer is going to be yes. Now, it isn't 100% of the time, but I say, do you think it's a good fit for you? And then they say, yeah, I think it is. And then, and then there's sometimes working out and negotiating the next steps, etc. But if it makes it, because everything has been covered, everything has been put on the table. I know about them, they know about my course, they're interested, and I just need to see if it's a fit. And then often the final question is, what is the fee for your program? If they asked me that earlier, I put it off. I'll say, we'll talk about fees later. I want to make sure this is right for you before we talk about the fee. Because I don't want to talk about fee unless I really know there's a fit. Right? Okay, so that's what I do. It's really effective.
So
I never
Robert,
feel I'm ever pressuring anybody or manipulating anybody. I just, here we are. Do you think I'm the right guy for you? There's a lot of ways to say that. Do you think this is the right program for you? Do you think working with me would be valuable for you? Or the words, do you think this is a good fit? You make it
Robert,
easy for people to say yes.
this conversation you have seems to make a lot of sense. I mean, it's all very logical, and I like it a lot. The question I have for you, though, is what's the step before that? Because to me, that's where the prospecting is, getting those cold people to come in and agree to have a conversation. The conversation is critical, and you've described it perfectly, but getting those people in the door is really the challenge for a lot of people. They always say, just get me people to talk to. Well,
Yes.
And
some people have resources that other people don't have. So I have a fairly large email list. so I can get, 15, 16, 20, sometimes more people together to talk to them. And I do an introductory webinar. And then often at the end of the webinar, I said, if you're looking for the kind of results that we've talked about today, is it worth a conversation? I'd like to find out about your business and see if I can help you or not. And I said, I'm not going to pressure you. I don't do that. I don't even know how to do that. It's not in my DNA. So I say, if you'd like to talk, send me an email and we'll have a conversation. We'll explore. I'll see if I can help you or not. And that's worked really well for me. That's one way. But I used to do that years ago, pre-internet, when I went out and gave a lot of talks. And I would collect cards and I would follow up with people. So now some people will do it with, so a lot of the people I work with don't have a big list, don't have a gigantic network, but everybody had, and let's talk about this a little bit because it really is the essence of affiliation. There's more people that are connected to us than we realize, first of all. And even if they're not very connected, we can create connections like that. And nobody does this. So, for instance, if you go, okay, here's a professional association. In that association, I have determined, just like Dan did, a lot of my potential clients are there. There are people in the job search arena. So I join that organization. That's one of the first things I do. Then I start networking with that organization. But many organizations, if you belong, there is a directory. And you can reach out to those people. And, nobody does this, and the people that do, everybody does it poorly. And I'll tell you a very simple way to do it. You send an email and you say, hi, John, I just joined XYZ organization. I do such and such. I noticed you do such and such. The purpose of joining the organization is for networking purposes and to get to know people. And I found the best way to get to know people is to have a quick conversation with them. I'd love to know what you do, let you know what I do, and see if there's some ways we can help each other. Some version of that in a simple email, a short email. The response is great. Or you call them and you say, hey, I notice you're a member. I'm trying to get to know the people in the organization. I'd like to know what you do. So, and let you know what I do. I'm not trying to sell you today, but you might discover that in the conversation, they are a prospect or they know prospects because you have your very clear message about what you do. Now I've done this. I belong to the San Francisco Chamber of Commerce, and aeon ago, I started my business in San Francisco. Does everybody hear my dog barking or not? You do hear my dog barking? Give me 2 seconds to close my door. Be quiet, Mira. Dogs, they bark at phantoms. They think there's something there, so they bark. So where was I? So you introduce yourself. So I got the Chamber of Commerce directory. It was printed then, and I circled all the companies that I thought I could help, because I don't work with corporations, I work with small businesses. And I wrote them a letter, and then I followed up on the letter by phone. And everybody that I talked to, everybody that I reached talked to me, and virtually everybody I talked to, I got a meeting with. And at that point, the light bulb went on my head. The only thing that got me a meeting is I was also a member of the Chamber of Commerce, which I mentioned in the letter and in the phone call. Hey, I'm also a member of the Chamber of Commerce. That makes you part of the tribe. And there are millions of tribes. So I would here give you another example. I wrote about this in my e-zine this week. I have a client who is a dental consultant, was a dentist for 30 years. Now he's helping dentists. and I'm helping him prospect and get out and connect with people, et cetera. And he's been struggling with it. He's got a lot of issues about it and fears about it. And anyway, I've been working to get him past that. So he said, I have this dental resource group. We've been working for several months and you never told me about this. What's your dental resource group? Well, it's other people that provide services for dentists, bankers, insurance people, that, anyone that provides a service to a dentist. And I said, okay, so how do you meet? We meet on Zoom. I think it's a couple times a month. And I say, how well do you know these people? And he said, not very well. How many one-on-one conversations have you had with them? He said, none of them. And I said, okay, here's my assignment. Reach out to every single one and get a private conversation with every single one so they understand what the hell you do, because they can't refer you until that happens. It will not happen until they understand. So then I got an email back. He said, I had a 90-minute conversation with the banker and he wants to introduce me to such and such. And I had a meeting with the insurance person. He wants to do such and such. So magic happens in conversations. We're not having the conversation, stuff isn't happening. We are not actively prospecting if we're not getting conversations. So often in our current circle, in people that we already have some affiliation with, there are potentials there that we haven't really tried much with. America is a nation of associations and organizations. There are zillions of them. And so figure out where your clients might hang out and find a way to connect with those people. Hey, I'm a member of your industry association and blah, blah, blah. You can find a way in a lot easier, and then it's not a cold call. Harder for some people, easier for others, sort of on a case-by-case basis. So guess what we're going to do now? We're going to do what I promised to do, which is break up into groups and share a little bit.